Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. We talk plenty about cyber risk and the fact that for many businesses, it's almost inevitable that they'll suffer an attack at some point. Prevention, security, and constant vigilance are all important. But what about insurance? What role does insurance play in all of this, and what does it mean for a business that's been the victim of an attack? Cyber insurance provider Coalition launched in the United States 5 years ago before expanding to Canada and the United Kingdom. It's now launched in Australia. Sam Weaver is the General Manager, Australia for Coalition. Sam, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be here today.
The obvious question, how does cyber insurance actually work? Is it like other insurance or not?
It's a great question. It's like other insurance in that there's a promise to pay. It's unlike other insurance in that cyber insurance is generally triggered by one of two events. It's either triggered by a systems failure or by a security failure. And so as we've worked with our 75,000 plus policyholders around the globe, they've found that the investment in cybersecurity and the investment in cyber insurance has paid significant dividends for them as part of an organization's overall risk management strategy. It's effectively insurance against digital threats. And as every business has some aspect of digitality to it these days, right, the corollary is that every company is a bit of a software company. We find that cyber insurance is among the most important insurances that a company can purchase to protect them from the digital threats they may face on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so that all makes sense to me, but you're going to have to dumb it down a little bit. What are you actually insuring here?
Yeah, great question. So the three most common perils that our policyholders are purchasing cyber insurance to protect against are as follows. Number one is a data breach, right? So they unknowingly release the information of their customers onto the web, right? The second is a social engineering event, right, where the company is phished with a PH, right? The company is taken advantage of by a cyber criminal and unknowingly transfers funds into the wrong person's hands. And then the third most common peril that we insure against is what's called ransomware, right, which has obviously been in the news a great deal lately, where cyber criminals lock up a company system and won't unlock it unless the company pays a ransom to the criminal network.
So if I pay a premium to take insurance against those main three potential problems I'm going to come across, let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's say it does happen. Am I getting paid out in terms of sort of lost business downtime? Is it actually the cost of the ransom itself? Is that what I'm insuring against? Is it about the cost of tech support? What is it in the policy that I get back?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I might take this moment to draw a bit of a definition between what you get in a traditional insurance solution and then what you might get from a company like Coalition. So in traditional insurance, it really varies, right? Traditional insurance always has the promise to pay there. So they'll pay claims, costs, and expenses associated with that. But at Coalition, we found that traditional insurance is not complete when protecting against digital threats. Right. The company has pioneered what we like to call active insurance. Right. And so active insurance comes with three sort of main features. Right. The first is active risk assessment. So Coalition has invested in technology that is capable of underwriting the entire public facing internet. Whenever a company applies for coverage with Coalition, we run that company against 48 trillion data points collected from 5 billion devices to present a real-time picture of the risks that a company faces. We then add to that with active protection. So when a company is covered by Coalition, we're consistently reviewing that company to make sure that their cyber threat landscape is safe. If it's not, right? So if we've detected a new vulnerability, we'll let that company know right away, right? And then thirdly, if they ever are a victim of a cyber event, we have on our team what we like to call active response, right? So you could think about Coalition as almost the police department and the fire department, or police services, fire services, wrapped into one, right? Ensuring that companies are safe from digital threats.
Okay, so anytime that you take out insurance, your own risk profile matters. As you get older, health insurance, it matters, etc. But what you're really saying is those data points allows you to establish a company's risk profile, even if they don't have it themselves, really.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, one of the things that we've seen as we've done the homework around launching in Australia is that the average small or medium enterprise really doesn't have that level of granularity as to their level of cyber risk that others may, right? And, we read about, large ASX 200 listed companies investing millions of dollars in cybersecurity a year or hiring hundreds of people specifically to focus on cyber risk management. That's almost not an option for your traditional small or medium enterprise that's just trying to be the best manufacturer or plumber or painter or educational system or whatever it may be that they can be, right? So the focus is on doing the job as opposed to cybersecurity, which is why we think they become almost a perfect target for cyber criminals. Coalition's research has shown that cyber criminals don't look at specific targets so much as they look at openings or opportunities to execute ransomware and execute threats, right? And so that's how a small and medium enterprise could become a target of a cyber criminal, because if they're not paying attention to their online security footprint, their attackers may be.
So if I take out the insurance, and I'm with you so far, Sam Weaver from Coalition, can I take out a insurance X, which means Coalition will pay the ransomware? Or can I take out insurance Y, which says, the cost to the business, X the ransomware and the ransomware attack, Coalition will look after? I'm still trying to get my head around that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer is yes. We offer what we like to call modular coverage to Australian small and medium enterprises, right? And so there are different coverage agreements that you can purchase in the Coalition platform that enable you to cover against specific digital threats. So if you want to cover against data breach, right, but don't want to cover against the risk of social engineering or the risk of ransomware, that's available to you. We find that 95% of our customers are purchasing coverage that applies against all three of those scenarios for a number of different reasons. Maybe the biggest reason is that we find 80% of cyber incidents or cyber claims have some aspect of human error to them, right? A company's cybersecurity approach could be airtight, but if the wrong person clicks on the wrong link, right, all security protocol may as well go out the door, right? And so with that in mind, we offer the ability for businesses to select pretty comprehensive coverage that protects them against a matter of online threats.
Stay with me, Sam. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Sam Weaver, General Manager, Australia for Coalition. So who is a typical client for Coalition?
Yeah, good question. So we maintain a really broad underwriting appetite from an insurance perspective. So your typical customer might look like a manufacturer. It might look like a place of worship. It might look like, a small commercial entity that you'd find on a typical main street in a town, right? The typical customer is a small or medium enterprise. We find that the typical customer is a company, like mentioned earlier, that is trying to be the best company that they can be in their industry and is selected working with Coalition to get kind of comprehensive protection against cyber threats.
Is it expensive? I mean, it's a bit of an obvious question, and I suppose the answer is depending what you're doing and whatnot. But given the prevalence of hacking at the moment, I would have thought that cyber insurance was quite an expensive enterprise, perhaps one well worthwhile. So I'm not making a value judgment there, but relative to other costs in your business.
Coalition has pioneered a pricing methodology that is neither expensive nor cheap. I would call it accurate, right? And so what we're looking to do is not price for the type of occupation a company is in or the industry in which they operate, nor are we pricing for even what cyber events they've had in the past. What we're looking to price on is what we believe cyber events will affect them in the future based on the data from our underwriting the public internet and the data from our policyholders, as well as the data from claims we've experienced in the past, right? So your average business that is maintaining a strong cybersecurity approach will find very competitive pricing for cyber insurance from Coalition.
Okay. And just at the moment, is it ransomware? I mean, we hear so much about ransomware, but presumably the other types are just as prevalent, or is it mostly about ransomware at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. It ebbs and flows a bit. Some recent data that we've seen shows that business email compromise, or the social engineering aspect of claims, is very prominent. There's a recent statistic that outlines $98 million in business email compromise losses over the past year, right? And so that's very common. You could look at that as high frequency, low severity, right? As we like to mention in the insurance space, right? Where it happens a lot, but it's not very severe or not very expensive when those events occur, relatively speaking, versus ransomware, right? Which is a low frequency, high severity event, right? Which is to say that it doesn't happen frequently, but when it happens, the cost can be extremely consequential for businesses that are affected by ransomware.
Sam, I love these interviews where I actually learn a lot. And today's interview, I learned plenty of things which I had no idea about. So thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
No worries. Thank you very much.
That was Sam Weaver, General Manager Australia for Coalition. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.